Hello. Recently I had a question asked me, and I thought maybe I had addressed it before, but if not, we'll just go ahead and do that now. And that was the word, or the two words was um, sensitive and tendency. So we'll start with sensitive. So sensitive, I take, and both of these use the same hand shape. So I take my five hand and put out, so it's basically an open eight. So this is eight when you close it up together, and then an open eight. Or I always used to say my feely finger out, but it's the same difference. So sensitive is it's sensitive, or you have your feelings or your emotions, you're sensitive. And you could do it here or here, but I tend to do it over the heart just because that's where emotions and feelings come from. If, on the other hand, if my hand was sensitive, went like to the touch, like, ooh, when I touch it, sensitive. When I touch my shoulder, ooh, sensitive. It's sensitive. So it could be on any part of your body where it's sensitive. Oh, that feels sensitive. Oh, that part, she's sensitive, right? So, sensitive. Now, tendency or tend to is with the same hand shape, but I use both my hands. So both of my open eights. And I start with my right hand because I'm right-handed, but it's your dominant hand. So if you were left-handed, you might start over here. But I'm going to start over here because I'm right-handed and that's my dominant hand. So I put that kind of over my heart, and this is where I start. And my non-dominant hand is more out. See, this is closer and this is more out. If I was left-handed, it would be more like this, where my left hand is dominant and my right hand's not, and that would be. So, so we have a tendency. So I tend to, I have a tendency. So tendency, I have a tendency to do whatever, or I tend to do that. But I really wouldn't sometimes use. I would use this for a tendency, more of a character. But if you tend to do something, or I intend to do something, or I would probably use the sign for mean. I mean to do that, or I plan to do that. So you have to be careful with some of the words like tendency. I have a tendency because that involves my character, right? My personality. But if I attend to do something, I mean to do something, right? I tend to do something. It's not necessarily tendency. So you have to really think about what it is that you're saying. What is it that you mean to say? And when you're first learning, or if you're stressed, or if you're talking at the same time, then yes, your hands are going to get a little bit confused with what you're saying. So you may say, I tend to do something, instead of I have a tendency to. Right? Because that's more character. I tend to always do this or that. I tend to do, I mean to do, or I plan to do this or that. So so think about some of those statements, and you might want to write them down, and you say, is it a tendency about my character, or am I planning to do that, or is that my goal, or do I mean to do that? You see what I'm saying? So you have to kind of really think about what that is, and sometimes writing it down in a sentence, or if you're reading it, you can stop yourself and go, how would I sign that? Or watching a movie or the news, you can kind of pause in your mind and think, how would I sign that? And so that's how you would do that. So sensitive, where it's sensitive to the touch, like if you've hurt your knee, and you may ask someone, is it tender to the touch? Is it sensitive to the touch? So tender and sensitive would be used interchangeably in that respect. So you can say, I cut my arm. It's tender. It's sensitive to the touch. My headache, it's sensitive. I have a headache. But if it's a character, like I have a tendency to do something because of that's your personality, Or if I tend to normally do this, that, or the other, like in a order or like your schedule of your day, then that's something that you plan to do or that you mean to do. So that would have three different ways that you assign it because it has a different concept. So the word isn't different. Sometimes we have these adjectives and adverbs and these nouns that we have to use differently. So, but most of the time that I use that sign would be it's sensitive, they're sensitive, or you have to be as sensitive when you're talking with someone who is hurting, or I have have a tendency to do that. It's a behavior type thing or a character. So anyway, so I hope that clears it up, but it's practice. So do that with your hearing and your deaf friends, and I'll see you later. Bye.